Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Johannesburg and New York listed DRDGold's Ergo gold recovery plant on Gauteng's East Rand is set to become a massive real-time research centre in an effort to reboot the faltering new FFG circuit. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
DRDGold presented a distressing set of March results this week, mainly owing to the faltering technology on the Ergo plant. Can you elaborate on that?
You know, that Ergo plant, I mean, it's been a fantastic money spinner. I mean, I can remember Harry Oppenheimer opening this thing, and since then, you know, it's made so much money. And it's not as if DRDGold don't know how to process dumps. They are the world's best. I mean, they're the pioneers of it. They've done it all over Joburg. They do it so well. They've got that team that's been in place for so long. But they realized that they needed to have a step change. And so they decided, as a lot of people do, let's go with new technology. That's always risky. I mean, I remember when the Saldanha steel plant opened, we had the dignitaries there and everybody, and the new technology was put into this plant. They tried to inaugurate it, and it was just a flop while we all watched. So there's a heck of a big, risk when you go into new technology. And I don't think any of these people expected the heavy rains that we got, which changed the reclamation dump mix that diluted it to a large extent, put a lot of water into the system. At the same time, it's pretty electricity sensitive. There was a lot of tripping. And instead of what they told us, there was going to be a 15% to 20% recovery. I mean, they were really so upbeat about this. I think they felt it was a no-brainer. Instead of this shooting up, it nosedived like really dramatically. So to a point that when all the analysts and journalists sat there listening to this presentation, the results were harrowing. The plunge was abysmal, but it was a credit to the company, I think, the way they said, all right, we'll sacrifice more quarters, but we're going to go for getting this right. And they even looked the audience in the eye and said, look, and if we don't, we'll set in a closure mode, which must have been hard to say.
Now, why did the company call a timeout at this part of the procedure?
See, they should have started this, what they call turning it into a big research site immediately. They should have said, okay, we're not going to go full tonk for production, not going to go full tonk for money, but we're going to go now, we're going to start right away to see what's wrong with this. But because this is a winter tariff period, they didn't want to add to their overheads, which would have put another 7 million rand a month onto the overheads at this point in time when there's so much uncertainty and they're not getting the output, and you can see they plunged into a loss situation and the production just disappeared. They said, no, we can't take more risk during this period when our costs are soaring. And you saw there with the all-in sustainable costs up 24% because as the rand falls, the resins that they use and that the prices lift, they're imported. So they said, no. We're going to have to sacrifice this quarter, but we will go back to what we used to do. So, what they call the low-grade circuit, they will continue pushing that out as they've done, for the last 5 years. But they can't do it now. They've got to wait for September, and then they will go into it for a full 3 months, try and get this plane flying properly, and they're hoping then for December Christmas present.
And they can't simulate anything?
They can't simulate anything. So they've realized that the situation that they've got into is just no way out of it. If you can't take this to a laboratory, you can't start trying to have a simulated situation. You've got to turn this big plant, and it's a very well-built plant, into a massive research center. It's a big research site for that 3-month period, and just go all out to concentrate on the technology. And really, I suppose in all, they would have sacrificed about a year, because the real results then, they'll only know at the end of December, and probably then only be able to go full tilt from January to March, and at the end of March next year, sort of know what it's all about. So it shows you that if Julius Malema thinks this mining is easy, he should come along to a few of these presentations. I think he'd ask people to buy him out pretty fast.
What happens if the new technology continues to cause metallurgical instability, and how could it affect the company?
Yeah, so it's going to affect the company drastically, because they're then going to go back to the old style of doing things, and they're just going to reach a situation where we say, okay, let's set up a program now for closure. And instead of having this 20 to 15 year extra life, they will say we've got 5 to 6 years left. And you can imagine what's going to happen in those last 3 years, because everybody's going to be running out and saying, you haven't cleared these dumps, you're supposed to be environmentally conscious, you're right in an urban area, you're supposed to stop all the dust, now where are you going, and how much are you putting up for environmental liabilities? So I'm sure, the crowd would pin them down so tightly in those in those last years that they'd probably have to close early, because there'd be no more money left, because everything is predicated on making money there. They're very conscious of the fact that they're in an urban area, that they can't create that. So, they've been really mastering their techniques and doing it very well, because they do feel that they've got a pioneering technology. This could be migrated to other parts of, not necessarily Gauteng, but the far West Rand, and even the technology could be migrated, because I don't think anybody else in the world. We're talking about 30 parts per billion parts. So they take out 30 parts of gold, but they have to go through 1 billion parts of material.
Fun.
So, no one else really, I think, has done this in the world. So there is a chance of them building up this technology and be able to migrate it. But in the meantime, they're saying, we've got to look hard reality, straight in the eyes. If this fails, it's going to mean closure in a very short period of time.
And that would mean job losses?
It's job losses. They're not hugely job intensive, but they got a lot of people there. They didn't mention it, and I didn't ask them exactly how many they've got, but I should imagine, they've got hundreds of people. And they've had to close the ERPM section. So they're no longer miners. You can say they're a gold factory. Because, this
research gold factory.
Yes, now they're not even a factory. They're a research site. And they will be for those 3 months.
Well, that in itself, South Africa does need good researchers, so maybe it's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I think it'll be a good thing. And I spoke to all the techies there, and they said, look, really already we're doing better, because parts of the operation, the crucial parts, are working. They're actually working to target. It's just extraneous factors that they're having to deal with, and they are being cautious, because they've got 3 streams. And when they go into this full tonk of research, they'll only use 1 stream. So there'll still be 2 streams coming out. So I think, in effect, Neil Pretorius is painting the worst case scenario more than he should. But of course, you don't want to do anything else. You must understate, particularly when you've got public investing in your company. You can't overstate. You can't afford to overstate. You won't be able to look people in the eyes, especially when you report every 3 months.
Well, thank you very much for your insight, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.